Hello, everyone. I'm Gabs Renalvin, and today we're going to talk about how to leverage the power of data lineage to perform regression testing, impact analysis, and other things that Martin here with me is going to show us. How are you doing, man?
Hey Gabs, doing well, thank you. Quite excited to join you today and everyone else to go a bit beyond just the technicalities of Lineage and go a bit more into the exciting use cases and real life scenarios and value that can be realized from Lineage.
Yeah, cool. So today we're talking about regression testing, something that is really common for software developers, but still not quite a standard when we're talking about data engineering practices. So the goal here is to understand how data lineage can be leveraged to perform this kind of things that I said right now, like impact analysis and other things that might improve your CI/CD pipelines processes, including many different types of testing. And we're going to chat here for around 50 minutes, me and Martin, and then we're going to dive into a live demo. So if you have questions, if you have anything that you want Martin to show us, and just ask. And but first, before questions, I want to know where you folks are watching us from. Where are you from, and how are you doing today? I hope you're fine. So, Martin, not knowing what is going to happen when pushing code to production is not an exclusive fear of software developers. Data people suffer from that too. So, how so? Why is that an issue?
It's a good question, Gabs. I think it's potentially a big issue because you you do something kind of a bit blind, like you don't know how it's going to affect other people. I think it's you can always argue that there's clearly differences between data engineering and software engineering, but I think what has changed a lot over the last couple of years is that the tooling that people are using to work with data has really matured and in many ways has become very much kind of similar to software engineering. The usage of DBT, Git, CI/CD, and all the things you mentioned. I think what's kind of lacking a little bit is this maybe shared standards of what what does testing mean, what does it
Yeah.
encompass, and what are the downsides we suffer when we don't do the testing and when we don't have control of the regressions that can happen and that's a lot of different things. It's people not having the data they need. It's potentially the product, not if you're using the data to feed into recommendation and these things. It's particularly critical, right? Because you might have ML models that are used to recommend products that are not updated. So it's quite a lot of different things and the standard people hammering you on Slack when something breaks that they are depending on, right? So I think that is the slight difference, I guess, is that if you have a very advanced software product, you probably have Datadog, you have blue green deployment, you have all of these very well established mechanisms to make sure that if you break something, you can at least roll back quickly and you kind of aware of it. And I think that's something in data. In many cases, we don't even have the basics. We may have testing on the data itself, which I certainly think is valuable on
Yeah.
volumes, on distributions, on enums, like does this column um, uh, kind of fit into a set of values that we think is allowed. But I think what's lacking is this more like system perspective, right? That we don't know really how these changes will impact other people. And I think more recently, a big topic, right, is also regressions on
Yeah.
performance and cost. Like we do these changes and suddenly the cost is blowing up. So there's like quite a few different things where I think it's a bit different than software engineering.
Yeah, and in conversations with data professionals, data engineers in general, you and Dan, founders of Alvin, realized that there were certain patterns between people, and when looking through the perspective of breaking stuff, or how to do changes properly, and you even did like a diagram. Could you show that to us, like an image where you map three different kinds of data engineers when it comes to perform changes? Share our screen with us. I see that we have a
Let
few
me
people watching us here
see.
right now.
Can you see
So
my screen now?
you know, now you can. Oops. Yeah.
Yes. So what we essentially established was that I mean, this is funny, but I guess it's also a little bit sad. But I think the way to deal with sadness, especially here in Estonia, where I'm living, is that you have some dark humor, and I guess what we found is that there's kind of specific ways of dealing with issues, and maybe this is more general in life as well, right? But you have like the mapper, and what we found there is that there's people and data engineers that are very much about they might maintain spreadsheets, they have lists, they have very like specific checkpoints they would go through to ensure that they're not going to make any breaking changes. Now, obviously the speed is going to be slow, they're going to get things right,
Yeah.
but data engineers usually aren't hired to work slowly. They're hired to realize business value, to do what they love, and add value to the company. Then you
Yeah.
have the dodger, which I think is even more interesting, where it's a bit like, well, let's not do any changes, because if you don't do anything, then you also don't do anything wrong. Obviously, accuracy and speed is I guess a bit like ill-defined in this sense, because there's no speed or accuracy to talk about. Um, then I think it's quite a common one is the hoper. Then you're just an
Yeah.
optimist, and I really hope that we're not going to break anything, and I think this is where you see a lot of these things on Slack, or alerts being raised, or these things happening that are a bit out of goes a bit out of control. And obviously this is also a fairly suboptimal outcome.
Which one do you identify yourself the most with?
I think as a software engineer, I'm probably more of the hoper, unfortunately, to other people's great frustration.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, and in your experience talking to data folks, with those profiles that you just showed us,
yeah.
what do they usually do to try to solve these specific problems, or leave this zone that they're in?
Well, I mean, I think the ones that are tackling it, they would usually do it in. I think this is very crystallized, right? The truth is always somewhere in between. What we kind of found is that to some extent there is this spectrum where you kind of have this tribal knowledge that these
Yeah.
tables are really important, so we're not going to touch them, or if we touch them, we're really going to be careful. And then you might have these tables that are a little bit, I don't know really. So let's ask on Slack if someone's using them. Maybe even be a bit bold and say, if no one comments on this thread in 30 days, we're gonna delete this table. And then of course they're gonna be hammered anyways. But by people, it's funny that it's something that quite a few said, is that we try to do this, and even so we still get why are why is my table not there anymore. But like I said, it's definitely you take this when you do these investigations and surveys, you kind of find this very kind of edges, but it's usually a bit of a spectrum, I would say.
Mm, yeah. And now, since we're here, I would like to ask you, and you do work at Alvin too, right? It looks like we have something that kind of tries to solve this kind of problem, or at least make it easier to do changes and all these things that these people have. And before diving into the demo, I just would like to ask you, how are we able to provide the solution to everything we just discussed here right now?
Yeah, I guess it's a leading question, given that we are a
Yeah.
company that provides and provides data lineage as a service. So obviously that's the as we have written about in would definitely recommend to go into our Medium articles on this that me and
Yeah,
Dan
we're gonna
have
put the
done.
link to our blog here on the comments.
Yeah, so it's definitely, these are, I guess, you can call it different use cases and problems that can be solved, and we have a really high conviction that lineage and usage data that comes from logs and APIs of the different systems is tremendously useful in solving these problems, because they are to some extent a source of truth for who is using what, where the data is flowing, and what are the consequences of making changes here. It's almost like a graph problem, and obviously, like I said, this is a very technical description or a very technical view on the problem. And the goal of today is really to go through the use case and show a bit more practically how we apply this data.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. So, just like to read this comment here from Enrique that is saying that domain knowledge and ownership feeling is probably, I think, what he means with this design is that is great, I guess, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah, thank
maybe
you,
it means
Enrique.
like maybe it means like that's the way of
That's the
dealing
way.
with that's the way of dealing with essentially making changes and all of that. And I definitely would agree to that. I think there's uh, I think that maybe the ultimate point, or the bigger picture of what they're saying, though, is that, and this is very true from what we see, that data maturity and working with data and getting value from data on a business level is really a lot about culture and maturity,
Yeah,
and so that's the frustrating part a little bit, that you just wish it was a technical problem, and everyone was like,
yeah,
well, as long as we just solve this, and that's
yeah,
true for everything, right? Is that you need to have a clear strategy, a clear vision for what you want with the data, what you want the outcomes to be, and then that would obviously also make it easier for the data team to make prioritizations and
mhm.
be a valuable business partner in the company.
It would be so much easier if we could just buy some tool that would solve every single problem, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah, let's share your screen then and start our demo.
Yeah.
So,
So let's see.
for those that are here that do not know Alvin, we are a company that, as Martin said a few minutes ago, offers data lineage as a service. And on top of data lineage, we build many different features and solve different problems for a good amount of customers right now. And Martin's going to show us how.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Always the big question. So yeah, I want to take you on like a small journey, I guess, of being in the shoe of a data engineer, and essentially how to go about making some changes in data environment, and how that can be improved by using Lineage. So essentially, the scenario here is that we're going to make a change to a table, and this table is called STG orders.
Yeah.
So now I basically, we also have a data catalog with quite a few bells and whistles, and it's not really the point of the demo to go too deep on that, but it's more to kind of illustrate the journey and what you kind of want to do when you're going to make a change. So the first thing that I would do as a data engineer is to like find the table, understand the table, kind of what's it used for, who is using it, and to understand some type of what's the prominence of this table within the company, and to kind of infer some understanding of, what would the consequences be of making changes here, like I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here we have the table. We can see that some columns are being used only by one user. We have some columns that are being used by actually yours truly, and
Hmm.
we can go to the queries and see, where does this kind of fit in. So you can see here, I've queried a couple of columns here, and in general this table is used, as you can see, also in the DBT environment. I
Yeah.
can also go a bit into the statistics to see, okay, what are the queries to this table in the past 30 days. So okay, this tells me something. Then there's also the lineage view. So this is the list lineage view, and this is a demo, and it's about lineage. So obviously everyone
Yeah.
won't see the graph. So I think we'll just
Graph.
jump
Graph.
straight into
Graph.
the visual lineage. And so if we expand this fully, we can kind of see, okay, this is the table that we're looking at, and it essentially derives from a source table, and then there are some downstream tables here as well. We can further expand the column lineage, and just have a look at this. If I click the arrows, I can actually see the statement that is moving data between the tables and columns. So essentially now I have an understanding that this table belongs to this pipeline. It's being used by these people, and this has given me enough information to be like, okay, now I know which users I should ping on Slack if I want to make a change here, and what are the essentially other tables that would be broken or essentially missing data if I make the change. But I think we can do better, right? Because this
Yeah.
journey of gathering information is more like, why can't I have this in a unified view? And we actually have this, and this is something that it's a feature that we call impact analysis, where you can emulate the impact of making certain changes. Let me just see if I just need to refresh here. So here you can see there's what we kind of start with is a drop table statement, but I can also
Yeah.
input any type of code here that I would like, and then this is run it's kind of a dry run essentially, and what it does is essentially looks at the lineage and says, okay, if you do this, what will be affected in your data environment? And here we can indeed see the tables that we saw in the lineage diagram and the users of those tables. So this is not in this example, it's not a very highly used table, but we can see that there are two columns here in this table that are being used by me, and those are the queries that we saw previously, where I just used these two columns. So we can see it also goes down to the column level, identifying this. So you can argue that making a change like a drop table is a fairly aggressive change. It might not be what people are doing on a daily basis. So we also have the drop column, which is potentially more relevant. So if I try to find this one here, so imagine
Mhm.
now I need to run this again.
It's a column. Okay. It's
Yeah,
an
so
ID.
imagine now that I would drop this column, and now we can see basically similar data because we have the
Yeah.
same tables that are dependent, but we can now see that it only kind of takes out the specific columns that are dependent and that you can see. So you see the similar view, it just kind of filters down, so you don't get all the columns, but obviously still the same tables will be impacted by making this change, and thereby they would be stale, which is kind of our way of saying that they would still exist, but they're not going to be updated anymore.
Mm. Mm.
We also have this would be the DBT jobs that are part of the
Oh, it's
pipeline that would also be be
And how
breaking. So
can you identify that's from DBT?
well, actually, we don't do it at this stage, but
Oh, okay,
but
but you know.
we basically infer it, or here we don't show it, but we infer it from the with DBT integration, and we can also do it from this comment, as you see that that is also part of the query. But what we do, which is interesting, is that we essentially fingerprint the queries that run over time, so you can
Mm,
see that this specific query runs every day over the last 2 days. And if you do this change to the column, this job will break and no longer be working.
mm.
So
Okay, so this is the kind of thing that if I was a data engineer, I wanted to drop this column, I would probably have to go into, as you were saying in the beginning, looking if anybody's using or just delete it, or maybe, I don't know, ask on Slack if anyone is using it before doing it, and it would take me a lot of time to figure out what would happen, right? It would take me like, I don't know, like good amount of time depending on
yeah,
the
yeah. I
project
mean,
and
I think
organization.
that I think the issue is not that it necessarily take you a lot of time or not, but this is that a lot of people, everyone's busy, right? And that's kind of
Yeah.
what I meant is that you can ask and then you make a change and then you still get the 10 people asking you why you made that change because they might not see the message or it's not let's say a bulletproof way of working with data and working with like change management around data.
Mm, yeah.
So if we kind of fast track this a little bit or reflect on what we have done, is that now we're kind of gotten to one step further where we can analyze in an easy way what so yeah, here you can see this is an alter table drop column statement. So now we can like see, okay, if you drop the table, if you drop a column, how would this impact our data environment and the users within this data environment. But uh, we can do better as well, and
Yeah.
especially if so as you probably understand from the naming and all, and everyone that's using DBT probably have cut their teeth on the Jaffle shop projects to get started. So
Yeah.
so
Even me.
as yeah, exactly. So as you understand, this is a DBT project. You can
Yeah.
also see that via the integration we have with DBT, we also get the model names and metadata from the runs and all this goodness. Um, but let's go to GitHub and actually have a look at
Yeah.
the project itself. Um,
Oh, we're going to GitHub.
so yeah, you can still see my screen. I always have this panic that
Yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't
yeah, yeah.
follow. Yeah, good. So here you can see it's a fairly small project with some tables in and models. And we have here. So as you saw previously, we had the same column, the customer ID, and this is probably a bit more common way of doing this, right? Where you actually make a change to a DBT model, and you do that change, and then all hell breaks loose, and you need to deal with people asking what's going on, what's happening, dashboards are breaking, metrics are off, and all of that. And but still, it's fairly common way of doing it. So here we have a suggested change in a PR in this DBT project, and so I took the liberty of running this an hour ago.
Mm.
And so what this integration does is that it uses the Git commits to understand what files, or essentially what files models have changed. And then so for every change in the model, we essentially do the same impact analysis, and we return this back to the pull request with a report on saying that how many assets have been affected, how many platforms, and how many people have been affected. And so
Mm.
this is just like a very quick way, and this is something that you can do to, if you would want to, you could also have this automatically break the PR. If you think that this is something that if there's any impact, you should just break it. But this will, in this example, it just comments back, and then it allows you
Okay.
to. Yeah, sorry.
Let, let, let me just understand if just me ask if I understand what you're doing. You are running like the thing that you just did right now in Alvin's interface, the impact test, but directly inside GitHub in your repository. Is that what you're doing?
Oh yeah, maybe I forgot to. So yeah, so essentially, what you have in GitHub and GitLab is actions and the ability
Mm,
to execute code based on PRs to validate. I mean, it's a fairly common practice that probably most software engineers and to some extent data engineers also know, right? That you can you run tests, linting, building, all of these things. So we essentially have GitHub Actions and GitLab Actions integration that just add the API key to Alvin, and it will call the API and comment this back on the PR.
oh, cool.
So this
That
is
makes
what
sense.
we see here,
Yeah.
and then I can of course hit this button, and this will essentially take me to the impact analysis UI that we saw previously. And if you remember
Mm,
what we looked at earlier, you see that this is essentially the same type of change because we are essentially removing a column that was there, the customer ID. So this is then like the affected column in this case. And here we can also see the same, like the users and the downstream impact that we saw previously.
mm,
So and this also highlights another interesting thing, that the impact analysis and how it works in Alvin is that like the previous view you saw, like drop or alter table, which are fairly aggressive statements that are it's not something that you would do on a daily basis. So here it actually highlights that we take the compiled SQL from dbt and we run it. So this is obviously not a drop table statement, it's a create or replace. So how this works is that it looks at what's the current status of the table and what would the status be if we made this change based on the columns
mm.
and the output columns of the query. And then we use that to run a similar impact analysis. But all of this is kind of done under the hood, I guess, and behind the scenes, so that the developer experience is very much preserved and kind of just plug and play as we like it.
Hmm. That's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool. I'll buy it. How much is it? No, I'm joking.
Well, you need to contact the sales team.
Yeah, contact us. We're gonna
And
drop the link right on the comments there. So yeah, Marty.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, we are very proud of this feature and very excited
Yeah,
about this. We already have quite a few customers that are using it, and I think it's we started out very much with data lineage and being laser focused on that, and now we're super excited to bring the actual product features on top of this, that what's generating value beyond, like we wrote some time ago a post about beyond the diagram, and this is kind of really what we mean by that this like
yeah,
really integrated use cases of lineage that fits into the workflow of data and with the tools that data engineers are using. And we're excited about the next things on the roadmap here, that this is very much about who are impacted on, because like I said, data is a lot about culture and people, and we
yeah,
think that being able to highlight this is not just a code change, it's like impacting other people in your company, and creating this more culture of ownership and accountability is something that we really believe in, and we think these tools that we have here is very helpful of that. But then of course
mm,
there's additional iterations of this where regressions are not just on breaking changes. Regressions are on performance, on cost, on other areas that aren't necessarily directly breaking things, but there's certainly if things take longer, if they start to cost more, especially in this environment that we have at the moment, then that's
yeah,
certainly something that data teams care a lot more about now than they did previously.
yeah. Do you think like this practices of testing things and using more and more tools to automate the whole process of developing and testing and publishing things to production will become standards. I know that my question is very open, but I would like to know your thoughts on that.
Uh, I obviously think so, and I think it has to, and it's not necessarily just me selling this. It's almost more like
Yeah.
if you look at what software engineering is and the tooling and how these fields are converging, it's like inevitable that will happen. But I think there is a huge difference between data and code. Is that code is to some extent like more easily understood, at least in one aspect, that when you test it and do all of these things when it comes to QA. But data is very kind of interconnected. There's people, there's other systems that rely on it, and it's very much a query is not just a query. A query might be from DBT, it might be from Airflow. There's so many systems involved, and that's really what we believe in, to give this holistic kind of data set that can actually be used in these circumstances where in order to actually have proper testing, to have proper regression testing and CI/CD for data, it
Mm.
requires a tremendous effort to provide. It's like a data, it's almost like a data problem as well, right? Where you need to have like high quality, reliable data to
Mm.
rely on data again.
Hmm. And why do you think people don't rely on data? I remember you saying something like data debt one of these days.
Hmm.
Is this related to somehow to this the things you were saying?
I mean, I think yes and no. I mean, I guess when it comes to data debt, it's probably related a little bit more to what I discussed earlier, that companies you have this like super power tools. You have Snowflake,
Mm.
BigQuery, you have Looker, you have DBT, really power tools, and but you might not have the experience or knowledge about data modeling, about best practices, about what are fact tables and dimension tables, and what's a data warehouse versus like Snowflake isn't a warehouse. It's just a tool that runs queries very efficiently, but unfortunately also very expensively if you don't know what you're
Yeah.
doing. And I think that's more like where the depth comes in, where it kind of comes to a point where it's hard to know where to focus your quality and testing efforts because there's so much. You're almost like drowning in data, and that's again where the lineage and the usage comes into play. So everything is related a little bit, where lineage and cleaning up, and the process, let's say, of cleaning up data, of reducing costs, and all of that is 100% a use case where lineage and usage kind of shines, because you can apply that to understand what's the valuable data. But when it comes to testing, I think it's really more about what we discussed now, to understand how it impacts people and other systems.
Yeah. Cool. So, okay, man, I think our time is up. If you just arrived here, if you missed the demo, it's okay. We're going to put it on our YouTube soon. So, the link to subscribe to our YouTube channel is there in the chat. And, Martin, do you want to say bye to everybody that is here watching us? Say
Yeah,
thank you.
I mean, yeah. Thanks everyone that shows up. I mean, I enjoyed blabbering away about data lineage and its use cases, and yeah, really hope it was useful for some of you as well. And just if you have any questions or follow ups, just feel free to ping me on LinkedIn or Twitter, or you know
Yes.
anywhere I might be.
Yeah, I'm gonna share Martin's LinkedIn here. Martin is also writing on data in the space on his LinkedIn, so definitely follow him there. And we are done. Thank you very much, everyone, and see you soon. We're going to have another live in approximately 2 weeks, I guess. Thank you, Enrique, very much. Thank you for showing up. And also, there's this other guy commenting here. I've lost his comment. I think it was Diego. Thank you. Thank you. There's two Henriques here with us. Thank you, folks. So, see you soon. Oh, Diogenes. Thank you, Diogenes. Thank you, everybody. And see you soon. Follow us here on social and also in our YouTube. Bye.
Bye.